It's Kringle time. Sit back, relax. It's time to dive into a world of laughter and learning with the Kringle brothers, reminding us that we are better together.
Hey!
Hey!
Whoa! Wait a second. I think.
Whoa! What am I doing? I'm doing all
wait
kinds
a
of weird
second.
things.
Oh, I have no idea what happened. Why is that there?
I don't know.
Wait a second. Did I? Nope, that's not that button. It's not that button. I did something.
Well, I don't know.
It's not
Maybe I
that
did
button.
something.
I was just
We're just having fun.
Live
Anyway.
stream comments. So this is on an example. All right.
Oh, man, I bet you.
On the screen.
Did I hit something down through here?
There.
Oh, perfect.
So I'm Santa Michael, and I'm here with my jolly counterpart. Yes, aka Herbie Santa Michael Brewer. Oh my! So
it's already been a
day, hasn't it? This is going a lot better than what we just did.
Well, you know, Michael, the sleigh bells are ringing and the reindeer are ready, my friend. And I'm so excited to dive into today's topic because you know what? This topic keeps Christmas magic alive.
Oh, yes, it does. And our topic today is to know your audience, knowing who you're talking with. And
much better than not knowing the technology.
And yeah, it's kind of like I look at it like going into before that. How's things going? Did you have a good week?
I did. It was a great week. I mean, we got a lot of nice people online. I mean, we got Bob Smith, Nate's online, Mike Hutchings from our friends up north in Canada from Hamilton.
Yay. And Nader.
And we got Alabama represented in here. Hi, Kane Smith and Charlie, who does like to call me Herbert.
He does.
We do have a good crew. But you know what, Michael? You know what?
And Mike is from Philly. We got Philly watching, and Bill is on. Yes, look at that. This is awesome.
Bubba Claus is sitting in the school bus watching us, waiting for the team to come back and everything else. So we have a
Wouldn't that be funny? Because football's starting in our area. I mean, and is it starting in your area?
Oh, yeah. I mean, shoot, I think this weekend the colleges actually start to play.
Yeah, JVs are playing tonight in our field. So if you hear a touchdown and it gets really loud, I'm just a block away. So we'll see how.
I know. I've been to your house. People walk by and go, "Hi, Santa." They don't know who they're saying hi to, but they say, "Hi, Santa."
Well, you know, it was fun. I had Charlie was over for lunch one day along with Bruce and Kathy Norrid, right? And so they were standing in front of my house and the kids were walking by and they were calling Charlie and Bruce, "Hey, Santa Michael." You know, they just thought, you know, this a white beard. It must be the guy, you know.
Must be the guy, the man, the myth, the legend. It's Santa. But Michael, what brings us here today?
Okay, back to focus. Thank you for helping me.
Well,
knowing your audience. In other words, I think it's really important, like you made the comment earlier about this is where magic happens. I mean, all the prep that you're doing in your backstory, you know, all of the things that you're working on, your stories and your props and your costuming and your all of that. This is like where the rubber meets the road. You know, I mean, you're doing it in front of your audience. And I look at it kind of like walking into a restaurant, you know, and when you know somebody there, you walk in, "Hey, Mike, how are you doing? It's good to see you," you know. And then when you don't know anybody there or you don't see that, you know, it's like, you know, you're a little more timid, a little quieter, and a little bit more reserved kind of thing, you know. So understanding your audience is, you know, walking in and being a big hello and seeing a friend again. You know, so when I look at audience, we'll say this, for me, you know, I mean, everything that I share this is my perspective for me. It's not black and white. I look at it more as the gray. It's like, what do they call in Pirates of the Caribbean? It's
parlay.
You know, it's just guidelines a little bit, you know, and you have to develop you. So everything we're saying, it's not black and white, but if you can glean from some of the stuff that we look at, yay, I feel good about that.
Well, if you look at our script, it's not black and white. It's actually green and blue.
This is green and blue. Yeah, that's right. So understanding different age groups is the first point that we put down for understanding your audience. And so I look at our main clients are 4, 5, and 6, 7, and 8 year olds, that area. because a lot of what happens is eight in that area right in there is where they start to go, is Santa real? 8 and 9.
Okay.
Is what happens but if I understand children, this is some of my teaching background helping me to get a good feel on this. So when I look at 4, 5, and 6-year-olds, some of the social and emotional milestones, in other words, every kid develops differently. I'll get on my teacher soapbox a little bit. I was always frustrated when rules would come down from the state or different people going, you need to do this and this at this age and this age and this age. Everyone develops differently. We're not car parts. And yes, there's certain benchmarks and things that, you want students and children to know, and you work on that, but you don't know when the light bulb goes off going, oh, I never visualized in reading. I'll just say this, as being dyslexic, I did not visualize my first book until I was in college.
Wow.
And so I had all these years. I'll never forget. I'm married and I'm in college, and all of a sudden I just start to cry. And my wife goes, "What's wrong?" And I went, "I can see her." I was reading a book called Hind's Feet on High Places, and the character's name was Much Afraid. I'll never forget seeing the sunset and the trees and the waterfall. And I looked at my wife, which she's very linguistic. She speaks 2 languages. She has her master's degree in teaching ESL, children with disability. She loves that. That's probably why she loves me. I'm like a test result for her. But I just looked at her and I said, is what reading is like for you every time? And she was astounded that it was that was my first visualization. My brain has to work so hard on decoding the words that it doesn't have time to paint the pictures. Wow. And so, yeah, all of that. So understanding kids and where they're at. So socially and emotionally for 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. So kindergarten, we're looking at kindergarten age kind of thing. They're learning to follow rules. They're learning to play together a little bit better with one another. They enjoy different things like acting out and dancing and singing, and simple chores around the house are now starting to be implemented at that age. Matching socks, picking up the table, helping with meals and those types of things. Language wise, milestones at that age, they're learning to be able to put 2 things together in a story. In other words, it started to snow and the cat scratched my finger. So they're able to put 2 separate things into a story and start to link and to be able to talk about instead of one small concrete type of thing. They can answer such simple questions. One of the things that their attention span only is about 5 to 10 minutes. So in other words,
no wonder my wife says I'm only 5 years old.
Well, and that's a big thing when you're doing story time. So in other words, you realize you only have 5 to 10 minutes to keep their attention. And then you've got to have an activity. They've got to be able to stand up. They got to move. They got to change things. And then you bring them back and then you can tell them another story. So that's a huge component about knowing that age group. Tailor it. So if you have this elaborate 15 minutes story, if you're mainly dealing with kindergartners, then it's really going to go over their head. And so when we come back to the linking story stuff, the vocabulary is very, very simple. They're working on that vocabulary. And so your words and what you say, you need to bring it way down, and you need to speak slower, so that way they have time to process that and comprehend it, because they're still learning the English language and processing it. So that gives you an idea of kindergartners. And then it's exponential when you start looking at 7th and 8th grade, or not 8th grade, 8 years old, 7 and 8 years old. They gain their bodies going through more structure, and they're changing it. They're starting to be able to do more complex, formulas types of things. And they're able to start asking questions. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? How long is it going to be? When are we going to be there? How are the reindeer? And so a lot of those quizzitive questions that you'll get from those children are usually around the ages of 7 and 8. And their attention spans are a little bit longer, a little bit more. So by understanding, knowing some of those building blocks and then studying that, there's a lot of sites out there that you can literally look up what's milestone learning. What does a first grader do, a second grader do, a third grader do? And there's a lot of those sites, and they're free, and you can get a chance to look at that. So that way, when you're developing what you're doing for a Santa, then you can tailor it towards that age. Adults, understanding the adult process, the adults want that magic just as much as the children do. So it's very nostalgic to them,
Yeah, they're kind of looking for the Christmas past when they were kids and having the ability to relive those magic moments.
Well, yeah. In other words, it's like anything else. I so love this. I really want you to love it too.
Exactly.
Yeah. So does that help with that age difference a little bit, Michael? Is that good?
I do. I mean, for me, it's like when you deal with the little ones, it's all about the magic and the wonder, and it's about, for me, it's getting down on their level, make them feel comfortable, because they're still kind of questioning everything, like you said, but they're starting to come to be an understanding of everything that goes on. I mean, in the chat, some people are also saying, today's children are different, even from their own children. And yes, because of technology basis and things of that, but a lot of the children don't really get to experience what it is to have a story told to them, not read now, mind you, but told to them, because again, they can turn on a tablet, they can turn on a phone or anything.
Well, I want to differentiate that. I should have made that comment. We're not talking about screen time. You know what I mean? We're literally talking about sitting there, hands on your lap, not pushing and shoving and not moving around, being able to really focus on the person. Now, one of the things that I do as a Santa, so when I'm working at the lodge and I'm telling my story, I do it. What does it look like and what does it sound like? And so I literally use my elf Jinx that's back here, and I look at Jinx before I tell the story. And I said, "Now you're going to be a good listener, aren't you, Jinx?" And I go, "Now, Jinx, remember, it looks like this. You're sitting down and your hands are on your lap. You're not looking left and right, and you're not pushing your neighbors, and you're not doing that." So I literally defined to Jinx what a good listener looks like. And I said, "Now, Jinx, remember what a good listener sounds like. Well, their lips aren't moving. Their eyes are focused on the person in there." And so I literally define for my audience, for those children, what it looks like and what it sounds like. And even though I'm talking to Jinx, you can watch them. In other words, all of a sudden, when I say, "Now, Jinx, remember, put your hands on the lap," that you can see them. They're doing exactly what I'm telling Jinx he has to do. So they're listening and following that instruction. So that way, I'm defining the behavior that I would like for them in my show.
So I have a question for you then. I mean, you've talked about basically the kindergarten level, first, second grade level and stuff like this. But how do you interact, or how do you change what you do when you get, say, a teenager?
Oh, so my vocabulary will change with them. I'll make associations and I'll ask questions. So in other words, doesn't mean I'm right. So I'll ask questions where they're at, and then I'll use their answers to play off and to define what I'm going to do. So in other words, if they're gamers, so when I look at teenagers and stuff, like, the odds are they're into YouTube, they're into social media, they're into their phone, they're into gamings, those types of things. Shoes, Nikes. Oh my gosh, I get so many hits from my custom Nikes. I have custom Air Force ones that I wear that I absolutely love. Comfortable. I got them that are comfortable and I want them, but whatever. That's another story. I have so many teenagers make comments, "Santa, you got Air Forces." Well, of course I do. You know what I mean?
Who do you think makes them? Yeah, and then one other area that we didn't really talk much about then is from a senior perspective. I know sometimes we do have in the Christmas performer world.
All right, I have to ask you a quick question before
Sure.
you get going into your answer. When you say senior, I need you to develop who I'm talking to, who, because I consider consider myself now all of a sudden, I guess I'm a senior now. So what kind of group are we talking about?
Your grandmothers, your grandfathers, great grandmothers, great grandfathers. We're gonna go from there. But no, I mean, they want to be part of all the fun and all the action as well too. And I know you mentioned, like with adults, you want to go ahead and cater more toward the nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
But again, though, is as we're talking about knowing your audience, how do you change what you do to basically, if you were to walk into, say, a senior center,
oh my gosh,
or a nursing home? I know sometimes, yes, sometimes you walk into some of those residential areas for seniors, and they do get a little grabby. Yeah, like in the old cartoons. Oh man! And then they start grabbing. But again, though, is when you tell your stories, when you actually are doing your interaction, what do you do different when it comes to basically dealing with, say, the grandmothers, grandfathers, etc.?
Well, when I do a senior show, it's more of, do you remember? And I work on verbiage. It's like, it's that smell like cookies in the oven. And so then I start painting those pictures, and the words are going, and then even doing gestures like, oh, that smell. And you can see by the gestures and using some of those descriptive words in it, same stories as that I would tell a small child, but I'll work more on the aspect of, do you remember when? Didn't we have fun? Wasn't that spectacular? And you can literally watch the countenance on their face recalling a story, and of course the little old ladies, I have to remind them to stay on the nice list. I don't know if you ever walked into a senior center, but some of those little old ladies, well, they can, yes.
Well, it's been proven. I mean, a lot of times as people age, they start losing their short-term memories, but they still actually remember and can recall the long-term memories. So by provoking the nostalgia, by actually making them remembering back to Christmases long ago,
yeah,
it does bring them a sense of being part of the festivities at that time. Derek Dugan put down, don't you know that I think he's trying to get his Minnesota accent in there? Don't you know? Don't be a show. Don't be a show. Be a heart that connects the mystery and wonder of the moment, leaving all in awe and enchantment. And I think that statement from Derek really sums it all up too, is when you are talking about knowing your audience, you don't want to just go in and say, I'm going to do the same thing for everyone, regardless of the age, because again, everybody is going to relate to you differently.
Well, in the nursing home, I love to ask a question. So what was your favorite gift that I brought you?
Oh, yeah.
It's back to that memory thing, and pulling in, as Derek, that magic, because it's their magic. It's not my magic. It's their perception. It's not my perception.
Right. And again, no, I mean, I think in all honesty, in this first part that we were discussing is to recognize the differences in the age groups itself and some of the things that you have to actually take in consideration. Because again, if you're telling a story or even reading a story, then you're basically if you're dealing with kindergarten, young children, you can actually show more of the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And not really do much of the words. But as you get older, as you said, you start changing the terminology, you start changing the vernacular that you're using, and then you're proceeding to go there. So again,
a lot of them will know the story too, where you can leave a word out and have them say it.
Right. And that's when you get that interaction.
Before Christmas and all through and you point to, well, what did I say next? And so literally they'll shout out, and they'll fill in those spots, and all of a sudden you get the whole crowd doing the things, and I don't even have to say anything, which means that's magic. When I'm instigating memories coming back. So yeah.
All right. Well, Michael, before we move into the next part that we want to discuss with Know Your Audience, why don't we go ahead and run the dad joke, because it is a good one.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Carl.
Do you know why skeletons are so calm? Nothing gets under their skin.
I just love that, especially too with the Nightmare Before Christmas and everything else. Jack Skellington, it's awesome.
Yes, that's my daughter's favorite Christmas. I mean,
you can't go wrong.
Her trees all decorated like that with all the Nightmare Before Christmas stuff. It's awesome.
I know it's great. Well, Michael, the next part of knowing your audience that I would like to discuss is cultural sensitivity and inclusivity. Inclusivity. That's a good word. To be inclusive, because as was pointed out in the first section, is the social atmosphere is always constantly changing, especially when we start looking at, for instance, gender, race, labels, however you want to look at it. And we actually have to come to understand that even though some of us may have certain opinions or certain things, but we have to be open to our audience, and you have to be willing to be able to change at a moment's notice. Especially too, I can tell you at one point in time when I was doing virtual calls, I had a person who identified as the opposite of what they were born as, and they used the pronouns of they. Well, I actually kept that really in mind. Their little brother on the phone call basically made the reference to their original pronoun, and I was like, good, it wasn't me that made that mistake. But also too is when we get into different environments, we also have to be very considerate of cultural sensitivity as well, because we do have multicultural families that are all joining together. You could have some people who basically look at the Christian or Catholic version of Christmas, and they're actually in a relationship with somebody who is studying Judaism and who actually celebrate Hanukkah. We have also the different family dynamics. I mean, we have the holidays of Kwanzaa. We have all the other holidays that come into play there. And as a Christmas performer, it's very essential to actually recognize and respect these differences, because again, not all families celebrate Christmas in the same way. And in some cases, you may have guests that don't even celebrate Christmas at all. So again, what you want to
the word parent instead of mom and dad.
Well, yeah, I always say grown-ups.
Yeah.
Because again, I don't know if it's the grandparents, uncles, aunts, or even godfathers or godmothers who are actually raising the kids or bringing the kids in. And I never want to assume.
Yeah. What special person brought you today?
Right. I mean, you don't know if you're dealing with somebody who has been adopted or is actually in foster care. So you don't ever want, I try to do that and to try to be very sensitive to the simple fact of, it even goes along the same thing as well too, is I know some of this conversation was, I think on Tuesday Night Live in the past there, or a Monday night show, is I literally go and ask a child or whether or not they want to sit on my knee or stand next to me. Because I don't want to assume anything, because of the simple fact is I don't know what the background is for that child or that family as whole. So again, it's really important that when you actually start looking at doing events at a large scale, that you actually know the traditions of the area that you're going to.
A little bit of
background. Now, I know you're very good at this, but the most important part to gather all this information is when you're actually booking the event itself. I mean, ask them what they want. But always have something in your hip pocket in case that there's something that the event that you're unfamiliar with the actual host, or the host is unfamiliar with some of their guests.
Yeah.
So have you ever had an incident where you actually had to, do something quickly on the fly?
Well, I mean, can you give me the scenario a little bit? I mean, you're thinking of.
Here you are, you're in the middle of saying Merry Christmas and it's so wonderful to be here. And then you start looking around and you start seeing basically the, the menorah. Or you see a Christmas tree, a menorah, and then they may have some other symbols of different holiday traditions that are going on during that Christmas season.
I mean, I haven't had that specific, I mean, I've been in a situation where, I'm a child and the parent come up and then I start talking to them and then finding out that the child's deaf, and so then the parent goes, "Oh, Santa, they just wanted to see you, but they're deaf." And I went, "Oh, that's not a problem." So hello, Santa's just so happy to see you. And the mom and the kid just froze.
Well, the mom probably
So-
freezes more than the child is, because the child
Well,
thinks, "Oh my God, this is the
the
coolest
mom
thing ever."
starts to cry, because now all of a sudden I'm forgetting about the mom, right? And I'm talking to the child, and I want to talk to them. And so the advantage of getting some ASL down, that's a good one for you to realize as you're learning that new language, how you need that process time back to what the process time of that young child needs. It gives you an idea of where they're at. So if you struggle with the quickness of that, being quick, when you're talking in your sign language, so that just lets you know, but whatever, different story with that. But that was a moment where you're on the fly, or you've had up, all of a sudden you see a child dress a certain way, and it's usually in the teenage years, more in that kind of component where you go, I'm not positive. So then I literally then have to make sure I'm giving verbiage, so how are you doing, and leaving gender and those types of things completely away of it. And then I love to ask, and children come up, you made that comment, of going, what would you like?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to sit on Santa's knee? You want to stand here? Or I'll even make comment, if you can see the hesitation in their eyes when we go to the next section about reading it, reading your audience, that hesitation going, would you like Santa just to leave? You can sit in my chair and I'll leave.
Mm-hmm.
And they look at you, and I get up and I'll walk around to the back so I can do, the photo bomb kind of Santa for the picture, and give the child it. So it's what's making the magic for them, keeping them comfortable in what they want.
See, for me, one incident that actually occurred was doing an event. I mean, I had a family come up, but unbeknownst to the host at that time with the children, that a few of the children were actually Jehovah's Witnesses. And they didn't know what to do or how to respond to it.
Oh, because they don't celebrate Christmas.
Exactly. And then I had another incident too, where the family came up and all they wanted was a picture, but they were all practicing Jewish faith. And so I had to bring up, what is it? The aardvark.
Right.
But again, most people will actually, at least as if you try, but again, another aspect, and this goes back to our discussion that we actually had with the different gift givers of the world. A lot of times, especially in the Latin American countries and Spain, Santa is recognized, as well as other Christmas performers are recognized. But for them, the biggest draw is the three wise men. Mm. That's actually their thing too. So when you start dealing with cultural sensitivity and being inclusive, any Christmas performer should actually do their research and at least have an idea as to what the different cultures, especially the main cultures in your area. Where I live, I get a lot of basically Christian. I get a lot of Arab Americans, a lot of African Americans, and there's no problem with that, because again, I think the most important, this goes something back to what Derek said again, as a Christmas performer, we have to remember that we represent love and kindness for all people. And that when you're in the red suit, you are a symbol of generosity, joy, and warmth for everyone, no matter who they are or where they come from.
Yeah. There's the stories can go on. All of a sudden, I thought of when you asked the question about finding out that this child's autistic, that was another situation where then the mom goes, he's autistic, and I go, well, I just then asked the mom. I said, what's his fascination? What does he love? Well, he loves cars. And so I literally got down on the ground, laid on the ground with the child, and then acted like I was driving a car and got the kid's attention.
And that's just being basically aware of the child's needs, knowing your audience member itself, and then be able to play to the strengths that go from there.
Yeah. And, I think the big, and I'll say this, the list can be long of what to say, what not to say, how to be sensitive. And I want to boil that down to just be loving. And be open and caring. Don't feel like you have to have it completely memorized, because then what happens is when we get by the rule of going, I've got to say this, I got to do the da 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 da. I think we can freeze in it, and it can hinder our heart from creating the magic. Just be loving and being sensitive to that.
I think you hit the nail on the head when we talk about know your audience and diversity and equality and everything that goes along with it, and inclusiveness as well. That's the main key. Be yourself. Remember, when you put on the red suit, or you put on the apron, or you put on the bells of an elf, you're there to basically show these people warmth, joy, and happiness, because sometimes this is the only time they get to actually see that.
Yeah, we've had some good comments.
Oh yeah, we did. I mean,
did you want to touch base on a couple of those real quick? Or
Bob Smith, I love to be able to give children their voice of consent, especially when their grown-ups seem to be a little bit pushy. Let's see what else is on here. Charlie always comes up with something good. Merry Chris Wanza Hondamus. It sounds like a new Mr.
I don't know if I can read
that. It is really hard to tell gender when they are all bundled up in winter's coats, hats, and scarves. Yeah, Charlie, again, that's another possibility too. So you can never just go ahead and assume anymore that even though if a person is wearing a dress or something like that, that they're actually female or not.
Yeah.
And then a lot of first generation people from different cultures want their kids and themselves. They really want to understand Santa.
Yeah.
So there's so many, but as we move on, we can come back to some of the other comments.
Let's do a thank you out. Let's do a real quick thank you for those who help us out. And here we go.
All right. Are we going to do Kringle time now too?
Yeah, we can do it. I was reading the notes.
Kringle track. I know.
And so I was trying to be good, and then I didn't. So all right, here we go.
Are you going crazy managing clients, contracts, and invoices? Kringle Tracker is here to help you. Stay organized with ease. Keep your sanity in check with Kringle Tracker's intuitive tools to effectively manage your schedule and clients. Our seamless, customizable contract system allows you to tailor your contracts to you and your client's needs. Prepare for tax time like a pro by tracking your income and expenses and generate reports to make it a breeze. Transform your Claws business by signing up for a free 20-day trial. Kringle Tracker was created by a Claws for the Claws community so you can focus on making magical memories for your clients. Head over to kringletracker.com and sign up for your free trial today.
We should get Roger to change that. Created by a Claws for a cause.
For a cause. Oh my! Oh, thank you, Larry. Thank you, Roger. We appreciate all that you do.
Yes, we do. Yeah, I can't imagine what we'd be without you guys. So,
well, before we dive into our third little hint about knowing your audience, you've starred a couple things. Why don't you go ahead and read those out before we move on?
I just want to say, I mean, we did get a comment from Deborah Peckus Perry. Great advice. Thank you so much, Deborah. Sandy Garland said most people, when they attend a Christmas event and don't celebrate at home, are aware of Santa and most accept the invitation, fully aware of that the Santa is loving, gentle, fully invested in the children. And you're so right. I mean, again, sometimes though you do get the children that basically have never seen Santa or know what Santa truly is, and they get freaked out, scared. Charlie always says, he loves it when the kiddos come up wearing a shirt showing the interest, Stitch, dinosaurs, Star Wars, etc.
Yeah,
it kind of gives you a little insight.
Reading, that's back to reading the room, reading your audience.
Which, which is
You're
so
setting us up for the next point, Charlie.
That's right. So, Michael, what I go in ahead and say to you is, Michael, give me a definition of reading the room. What would you say?
I think it's being an awareness. It's mindfulness, but I'm not sure if that's what you wrote. I didn't get a chance.
No, actually,
but that's for me. And I guess I'll say this too. When you come to mindfulness or being aware of the environment, what's happening in the environment where you're at. In other words, the smaller the environment, the easier it is to read. I mean, when I look at the lodge and I've got 150 people to 200 people sitting there watching me, and then all the games are going on and the machines are going on and the noise in this, and people are checking into the hotel. I mean, and people are moving their bags around. I mean, it's so much harder, more difficult for me to read that room. You know what I mean?
Okay.
To keep the control of it, of where I'm taking them, where I want to take them on the journey on this magical, thing with Santa. You know what I mean? So I'll say this before we even dive into more of reading it, and Charlie's thing about the shirt is that you're going to make a lot of mistakes.
Oh yeah.
And so make sure that you forgive yourself. It's not a crucial thing. It's like anything else. When I was a first year teacher, I stuck to my textbook like crazy. And then eventually each year I loosened up with that, where I'm understanding the content of what I want to bring, but I'm also able to watch where my audience is at and what they're learning. So in other words, so some of those things, like what Charlie said, they're t-shirts. What do they have on? I mean, I love the one story that I heard from Ted Lennon. The kid's got a varsity jacket on, and on the varsity jacket it had tennis team.
Right.
It had his name. And so Ted used to coach tennis. So Ted knew a little bit about it and made the comment about, well, Jim, how's your backhand? Everyone was working on their backhand. And the mom was freaking out that Ted's reading the environment, reading the kid's shirt and everything that he's got on his jacket, and trying to stay in character to the mom. But the mom was getting furious. How did you know that my son played tennis? How did you know his name? The mom was just freaking out. And eventually, the manager had to help that out. But it's like, hey, mom, he's wearing everything. And so it's great when a little girl comes up and she's got purple on, going, now purple's still your favorite color, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So just reading what they have on, what they have, taking a look at their shoes, Crocs are one of my favorite things too. Have you ever bought those little things that you can stick on your Crocs to decorate them? Oh, I'd love some of those. You know what I mean? So, and it's stuff that's right in front of you.
Oh, for me, reading the room goes back to basically being like the wedding DJ, or even like looking behind the scenes of coming down, before I make a grand entrance, is because there's always going to be some type of activity that goes on before Santa or Mrs. Claus or an elf makes their appearance. And if you can actually get some insight into that, for me, I often tell people that I'm more of a street performer, because the bigger the crowd, the more animated and the more, I don't want to say crazy, but the more I'm excitable.
Right.
And that's put it nicely. And that's what I look for. So if I actually can get a glimpse in there and I see somebody go ahead and tapping their foot, or, starting to dance, or once you come into the room and you feel all that excitement, that helps me gauge how much I can push forward or how much I need to withdraw. Because again, what you want to do is try to match the same energy that's being given. For instance, if you're actually coming in to do a St. Nicholas presentation, to go from St. Nicholas to Santa or vice versa.
Yeah, my untangling Christmas presentation that I do.
But you're going to be a little bit more somber because of the environment that you're in.
That's right.
And the guest in there. But if you're going
it's also the character that I'm presenting as
right.
St. Nicholas compared to what I'm presenting as Santa. Even though the link is they're different, the liturgical robes and stuff create a different feel and a different thing to it.
And again, for me though, is especially when I'm dealing with, like, say, older kids or teenagers and adults, I start going in more of the Christmas, the Christian basis of the nativity story. And I actually start talking more about the three. But again, my personality and my cadence changes to go into more of a, well, you remember.
Yeah.
Rather than, oh my God, could you imagine? I feel like I've actually just eaten 50 pixie sticks and living off of chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah.
Which sounds like a great meal, unless you're diabetic.
A good hint would be this. One of the things that I've learned in classroom is, like, you got a student messing up or they're behaving. And it's same thing happens into a group of kids, depending on how large your kids, you got fidgeting, you got pushing on. And if you have the freedom to move around, just go stand by them. You don't have to correct them. Like, no. You don't have to do that or refocus, just stand by them. Move where your stage is at, because all of a sudden people are going to watch you because you're Santa and you're in charge and you're telling it. So I don't have to tell Jimmy to stop it. I just go stand by Jimmy, and everyone else in the room is looking at Jimmy and I. And all of a sudden, guess what Jimmy does? the majority of time, there's always exceptions to everything. This is like, it's parlay. Remember, this is parlay. We're not talking, things aren't black and white. You know what I mean? But the majority of time, Jimmy starts to behave well.
Right.
And I didn't have to say a word. It was just my presence standing next to him. Control, reading that environment, where to do it, positioning yourself. Change it. You're Santa. You are the big guy. You're in charge. So if you want to go stand over there to tell your story, stand over there, tell your story.
Now, Mike Hutchins guy says, liturgical. Why, Mike? Don't use big words.
Liturgical.
Thank you. Robes provide a certain gravitas versus the red suit, and you're absolutely right. When you start looking at what you're wearing, also can actually help change your demeanor and your personality when you are dressing individuals within a given show. But again, also just another tips, like I said, watch for cues from the crowd. If people are leaning in and smiling and engaging with you, then you must be on the right track. But if you notice anybody pulling away or maybe looking uncomfortable or even remotely getting bored, then you need to adjust your approach. That's right. Remember, it's not about what you say, but how you say it. Your voice, body language, and facial expressions all play a part in how you are received by your audience. So whenever you have a chance, practice in front of a mirror.
All right. I've got a question. What is an elf carrier?
I don't know what was referred to by that. Maybe I actually said something.
Did you say an elf carrier?
I don't think I said an elf carrier.
My elf?
Maybe. Oh, yeah, maybe.
I made the comment about Jinx, my elf, that I use him. I've got him on a Barbie doll stand.
And then he also has Jinx that comes out of the mailbox there as well, too. And these are other aspects that you can actually bring onto a set. Yes, Future Santa Joe, those are elves on the shelves. But the nice thing with those elves on the shelves, they move, which actually is really fun reaction from the children.
Oh my! Talk about not and reading the audience. The first time I used Jinx, of course, the kids went ballistic, right? And of course, I had stuff that I wanted to do afterwards. I quickly learned that Jinx is, for me, that's what I got the name from Roger. Jinx.
Well, wait a minute. Why do you call him Jinx?
Well, you know what? Because I wanted everyone to say hi, Jinx. So I had all the kids say hi, Jinx, and I just think it's so funny having them say hi, Jinx. But parents don't know the word hi, Jinx anymore. So I thought it was a great parent gag, to say hi, Jinx. And it was like, so I literally asked some 30-something people, do you know what the word hi, Jinx is? And they, no. It's like, all right, that joke is dead.
Now, I think looking at the chat, Michael, what they're also talking about too is, yes, according to the rules of the elf on the shelf, it's not supposed to be touched by human hands. So children have come up with the ways, and they even sell things that are elf carriers, which are basically plastic containers that you could put the elf in so they can come and visit Santa with them.
Oh, yeah, mason jars. Sometimes some of these little kids are carrying glass mason jars, and then, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope they don't trip and fall and glass everywhere,
Now, the funny part is last year I actually had a child come up to me with their elf in a plastic container, and they were very upset because they inadvertently touched their elf, and they were told that the elf lost all their magic. So I had to perform a ceremony right there in the chair to restore all the elf magic back into their elf on the shelf.
That's awesome.
And lay it carefully back into the jar so that they would be there. But again, that then leads us into segment 4. Don't you like all these segues in there?
Oh, it is awesome. You guys are helping us. This is easy. So segment 4 is personalization and flexibility.
Well, before we move into that, Mike did say, though, is with elf carriers, especially if you use mason jars or peanut butter jars, put some holes in there so those little snitches can actually breathe.
Yes.
All right. But yeah.
Like, I thought of that the first time I saw it. I said, this guy's not breathing.
They hold their breaths really long.
It's a good thing they're magical.
But the last thing is
so what color does Papa Smurf turn if he holds his breath?
Well, I think he actually turns a pretty shade of violet purple.
Oh, okay, it makes sense because he's blue already. So if you hold your breath, you turn blue. But that's a good response.
But if we're going to talk about Smurfs, what was the color of Smurfette's original hair?
Oh, I don't know that answer.
It was
because
black.
You're the trivia guy.
because it was black because Gargamel was the one that created Smurfette, and then Papa Smurf turned her good, which gave her blonde hair.
All right. So I tell you what, before we move into that, let's do our trivia for the night.
You want to do the trivia before we move into the final section?
Well, it's because you wrote the trivia question. Well, you didn't. You looked it up. You wrote the trivia question this year, and so which I just have so many jokes going through my head because of your question.
All right.
You need to handle this
tonight. Today's trivia is
brought well, just a second. And if what does our winner get? Just so
that's what I was going to tell you.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I got a little hyper and excited.
Our trivia brought to you by North Pole Cornerstone. So the winner, which was the first person to actually respond correctly to this question, will win an opportunity to have their name thrown into a hat for a selection to a North Pole Cornerstone held in San Antonio, Texas in January 2025. All the information that you can find online, or if you're a follower of Tuesday Night Live, you'll also see it there. But the question, and I'll read it first before I actually show it, is what animal parts were first used to make the first artificial Christmas tree and the color?
Yes. So I just think that's so funny. What animal parts? I mean, when I'm talking parts, I think of chicken, parts and legs and thighs and breast and wings. And
a good chicken wing would not be a bad idea sometimes, you know.
You can go to Buffalo Barbecue, the Buffalo
Wild Wings,
and get the chicken parts that way. Christmas tree made out of chicken wings, hot or mild.
All right. Sandy, you got half of it correctly. Now I just need to know the color.
Oh, wait. Yeah, the color is part of that. What color? Uh-oh.
Is it going to be a race?
Specific. You got your Atlantic. Oh, we got white feathers. We got someone jumping on it.
Oh, no, Mike Connor. Nope, not that quite. Goose and Kane Smith. Kane Smith comes in. Oh, actually, Charlie came in all at the same time, too.
Oh, wait. There's a time signature on it. Make sure that you've got it.
They both say 8:45. Okay, we have our winner.
We'll put both of their names in.
All right, we'll put both your names in. And the answer is dun, dun, dun. That's the international Herbie call. Dun, dun, dun.
You're on and you're off. Now that you're going.
There it is.
So what animal parts were first used to make the first artificial Christmas tree?
Painted green.
Goose feathers. So that would I wish we had a picture of that.
So is that why the Christmas tree is so down?
No.
Well, down feathers. They're goose feathers.
I wasn't expecting that from you. You're a hoot.
I live in Detroit.
All right.
What do you want?
All right. Wait a second. Now you made me forget. Who won?
Charlie.
We got two winners. I know because the timestamp was the same.
We do, and it is
Charlie and
it's Charlie Johnson and Kane Smith. So let me pull up the sheet here and let me see here, because I want to make sure we don't have anybody listed. No, we don't. So you know what we're going to do right now? We're going to basically refresh the screen for me so I can actually type right. We're going to put Charlie Johnson in there.
Well, since you're doing that, we'll make the comment like you've got to wait 90 days to, kind of think. Or not 90 days. What did Bob say?
It's like 60 days or something like that. No, it's like 45 days.
So while you're typing that in, I'll go ahead and do a couple of house cleaning things.
You sure can.
Just to let you know, one, if you would do this for me, do us a favor. We would appreciate it. If you have any comments or anything you'd like to share with us, hopefully positive. We love hearing positive things. Please email it to us at kringlebrothers2@gmail.com. If you have a dad joke that you would like us to air, to put into the segment, record that if you would on your iPhone, but don't do it the TikTok style. Don't do it vertical. Please turn your phone sideways, horizontal, and record that and then email that to us, and we'll work on getting it into the show. We love a good laugh. It's like medicine, does your soul well to laugh well. The other thing is please, if you would remember to like and to follow us on Facebook and to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Kringle Brothers. We'd appreciate that. The algorithm stuffy that Roger told us about, the more clicks, it works better in your favor kind of thing. So if you can click and like and share, we'd appreciate that. It just helps us out a lot. The other thing that I'll go ahead and housekeeping and share is that our last show will be September 11th.
There's an important date involved with that.
Well, there's more than one important date. The most important date with 9/11 to me, this is just personally, it's your birthday, Michael.
That is, yes, it is. It's my birthday.
I realize everything that happened on 9/11 and that whole thing, but what's important to me, it's your birthday, and I can't wait to celebrate with you. So
Herbie came here.
So on the 11th will be our last show. We and we're planning on a second season next year. So, but we're starting to work. I'm off to New York next weekend, and we have photo shoots and every weekend. And then we're off to teach to the NORAC Santas in Washington State at the end of the month. In September. So our Christmas season, when we talk about it, it's right at our door. And so we've got our last thing on personalization and flexibility we want to talk about, but I want to say thank you. We appreciate you tying in and watching. We're firm believers that we're better together.
Well,
we're thankful for you.
Even though we're going to go into a temporary hiatus as our season's coming to an end for the show itself, we're still available. Reach out to us. We'll answer questions. And if you want to, we can even get online and we can talk, or we can do something itself. But we just want to make sure we're here for the community. And that's our most important item that we want to get across, is we're doing this because we love each of you, and we want everybody to be the most successful Christmas performer they can be. Which then again, as we go ahead and get ready to close out here, because we want to be respectful of your time.
William sent you a picture, Herbie.
I know, I saw that. It's a picture of a goose Christmas tree.
Oh, you've got to forward that to me.
I sure will. All right. So with all this talk about knowing your audience and being able to change and personalize everything, Michael, what's the best thing when we talk about personalization and flexibility and why it's important?
For me, some of the personalization is back to that magic. If Santa knows your name, and he's being observant and reading that environment, bringing it to a personal level, that there's nobody more important to you. So like I've made comments in the past that I have to do this. My brain can work so much, and there's so many squirrels that I have to remind myself when I get a child and I'm looking at it, and I say in my mind, there's not another, this is the most important conversation I'm going to have today. Mm-hmm. And so by doing that, focus, Michael, bringing it personal, keeping it right to that level, down to them, that this is it. I was made for this moment. And then when they walk away, I was made for that moment with a child again, keeping it personal. And the flexibility is realizing that it's constantly going to change. You got to be fluid. I think I think a lot of times we like the black and white, but life is full of gray. It's never really black and white. And I've always told different people when I've talked that my socks that I have are white. And then my wife bought new socks for me, and then they were whiter. So I can't call the old socks white anymore, because my definition of white just got changed. So white is always white until something whiter comes along.
Or you just need to buy better bleach.
A bottle of bleach could bring it back, but I tell you, there's so many stains on my socks that it's never quite the same.
For me, as for personalization, what I always like trying to do is listening, if possible, through the crowd, and actually get to find out a child's name without anybody knowing. And then that way it really actually makes a great impact on the child itself. But more importantly, I think one of the biggest keys that you may be able to address as a Christmas performer, and we discussed this a little bit last week when we were talking about improvisation, and that is being flexible. I mean, all the time, anything you do is not going to work every single time the very right way. I've used Jinx in the past, and I've actually used Jinx where I forgot to actually turn Jinx on, but I still had to do the show, and therefore you need to go ahead and figure it all out that way.
Yeah,
Another aspect too is
flexibility.
about being flexible and adaptable, especially if you're working with photographers and event organizers. Collaborate with them. Each one of you, when you go on set, you're the expert.
Yep,
You
you are.
know what works, you know what doesn't, because you have all the experience, and you want to let all the elements and events unfold naturally and not try to force. But again, you also want to keep up the energy or matched energy that you're doing. So I hope you all got something out of tonight's show.
Yeah,
Because as a closing thought here, remember, the best performances are often the ones that do not follow a script. So trust your instincts, stay in the moment, and always keep your audience's needs at the forefront.
Yeah, I would agree with it so much.
And I know this statement here is truly to your heart, Michael. Whether you're a veteran Santa with decades of experience or a new elf just starting out, remember that every interaction is a chance to spread joy and make a lasting impact. Be mindful, be kind, and most importantly, be yourself. And the reason we say this
thing, I'm not good at that. I wish I could. Kids will come up and do the heart thing. It's like, I got to work on that. See, look, my heart's more like a blob. I can't do it. I love it.
Your heart is just anatomically correct. That's all. Well, family, Santa family, Christmas performer, thank you so much for another wonderful show here. We still have a few more minutes before we go, and we'll read some of your comments. But I just want to say this to each and every one of you. Thank you once again for joining us. Next week's show is going to be a great one. We have a fantastic photographer going to be joining us on Photographers Smile. You're on Candid Camera.
Yeah, it'd be great to find out from the photographers their expectation of us.
Right. And what things that they think work well and why they do all that. And it's wonderful. So we hope to see you all next week. And just looking at some of these comments here, Santa Kevin, Olam, your shows are so informative, entertaining. Thank you. Gary Linder, thank you for a great show and your time. Bob Smith just gave us a okay.
Okay, Bob.
Sue Radloff, your heart is just very big. That's all, Michael. Jeff Ouellette, great show. See you next week. Great shows, brother, from the one, the only Bob McMasters. John Sheeran, great show. Bob Smith, chibi heart, thumbs and fingers. Okay. I'm learning new languages here. Next thing you know, we'll be talking about the Grizz and the Shiz and all kinds of other fun stuff going on.
Is that a New Yorker term?
What? The Shiz?
No, chibi.
I might be. Kane Smith, our winner today, was another fantastic.
Bob will text me. You don't know what that is?
Of course not.
No, I'm slow on that one.
I'm just trying to develop Santa loves you.
Well, I can teach you more.
I know you could.
It's a wonderful thing. I love the sign for amazing. So it's like your eyes open up like, oh, amazing. Isn't that awesome? I love that sign. Amazing.
Oh, chibi is Japanese for small and cute.
Oh.
But we're neither small or cute.
I'm not used to, going, oh, you're small. I'm not, I'm more of a girth and mirth kind of guy.
Oh, great. Now we're both Jonathan Winters?
No, happy and big, girth and mirth.
All right, Michael, I think that's our time for tonight here. Again, as we close out this show here, I just want to say blessings, everyone. May your life be filled with encouragement, laughter, and fellowship.
And may your life be full of magic and smiles as you have a wonderful Christmas season this year. Thanks, everybody. hey, there's still a few people on to the cast party, the after party thing.
This is the afterglow.
The afterglow, the after party, the cast party.
This is a great time here.
You did so good tonight. I'm so impressed.
Oh, not as good as you.
No.
But you know what made it better?
What?
All the people that joined us today.
I agree with that. You know what I mean?
So
we'll do my joke, right?
Okay, what's your joke?
There's a politician. There's a policeman.
Policeman.
Who else do I say? There's a priest, right? Santa, 3 elves, a garbage collector. They all walk in the bar together and they all start talking. Guess what they talk about?
Well, it's not knowing your audience because that's one crazy audience.
It's Kringle time. They love watching the show. All right, that's a
future.
bad joke. I gotta write a different one for the end.
Okay, but Future Santa Joe, the show is open up on YouTube or on Facebook. You can find us at the Kringle Brothers, and we look forward to seeing you again next week, my friend.
All right, blessings, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Have a great week.